Hello. Today's English workshop is going to be focusing on organisational features, fact and opinion, and comparing texts. So, organisational features that you might find in a text include headings, subheadings, bullet numbered and lettered points, paragraphs, tables and charts, and captions. And in your exam, you might be questioned on a range of these and where you might find these in a text and what specific areas within a text uses these to help locate information. So, headings, what are they? Headings will always be found at the top of a text. They will inform you what the text is about. Subheadings are used to break down sections of the text and are often underlined or in bold. Paragraphs are our sections of text that help make the text easier to read. Bullet points are used as either numbers, sometimes symbols, sometimes letters, to help pick out key pieces of the text. And then we have hyperlinks. So hyperlinks are often in blue and underlined and direct the reader to alternative parts of a website, encouraging you to maybe buy something or find out more information. We then also have captions, and these are little descriptions underneath pictures that tell you what that image is about. And then finally, we have tabs, and tabs are located, as you can see, at the top of a website, and they are used to summarize what the sections of the website are about. So if you wanted to find out alternative information from the page that you are reading, it then helps you navigate that website. So, why do writers actually use these techniques? So, headings summarize what the text is about. So we are aware, as a reader, what the following text will include, and that will encourage us or discourage us to read that text. So, for example, if we were looking at a text about fitness, cycling, and why it should be a New Year's resolution would be a great text to read. However, if we were looking at a text about how we should buy things to benefit our pets, this wouldn't be a text to read. So what a title or heading does, it allows the reader to understand what the text is going to be about and summarises the main aims of the text right at the top. We then have our subheadings, and these summarise what our paragraph's about, making information easier to locate. So, for example, if we wanted to information about the author, we would go to the About the Author section that's likely to tell us about where he lives, how long he's been cycling for, etc., etc. We then have paragraphs. Now, there are many texts, a lot of texts. There's only one known, which is a text called Ulysses, which is a novel written that does not contain any paragraphs whatsoever. It's known as one of the hardest texts to read because of so. Our eyes prefer paragraphs because it helps section the text to make those sections easier to read. You will not find a text in your exam that does not include paragraphs. So it's really important. It's one key organisational feature to remember. And then your bullet points, and these separate key information, making it easier for the user to find that specific information. So as you can see the bullet points from the text, those bullet points are used to help summarise the key information about the bikes that the writer recommends, and then the hyperlinks, which encourage the reader to find out more information on a topic, product, or research. Brilliant. So looking at this text here, we want to try and identify as many organisational features as we can to help us locate the information in the text. Okay, so our first one is our plastic free, would be known as our heading. That tells us that the text is going to be about issues around staying plastic free. We then have a range of subheadings, summarising the different sections about how plastic affects the world, things like that, how plastic's made, any problems around that, things like that. We then have our bullet points. We have clear paragraphs. We have images to help us as well. And there are our organisational features in text. So that's one of the ways that you might be questioned on organisational features. A secondary way you might be questioned is actually finding specific information in the text. So a question might say here, which organisational feature does the writer use to make the instructions on how to use the app easier to find? So you might be looking at this question thinking, right, I know my organisational features, I'm just going to find them in the text. However, what is very different about this question is the specific information that it's asking you to suggest where that is coming from in the text. So what I would advise you to do is highlight or underline this information. So the instructions on how to use the app and which organisational feature is that presented in. So for example, it wouldn't be a subheading because none of the subheadings here comment about an app. It's not the heading because that tells us about the taxi, but we do have this little text box here. And it says here, with our app, customers can book a taxi, control and track, manage advance payments, choose. So here we have our instructions and they are not presented in a paragraph. They are actually presented in bullet points. So which organisational feature does the writer use to help make the instructions easier to see? Well, he uses bullet points and that would be our answer. And then here, which two organisational features are used to make the text easier to read? So this is more broad. The examiner is asking for which organisational features help make the text easier to read. So as we know, paragraphs, subheadings, bullet points can all be used and are all examples of making the text easier to find information. So we can include any of those. Subheadings, bullet points, paragraphs, any of those. Perfect. Okay, next. Our second question. So which two organisational features within this text does the writer use to make it easier to find out information on the benefits of pumpkin? So same thing, we're going to go information on the benefits of pumpkin and we're looking for making information easier to find. So we know here our benefits of what pumpkin does for dogs is listed in bullet points. So we've got bullet points. We can also have the subheadings and then our paragraphs. So any two from those is fantastic. Brilliant. And that is organisational features complete. Our next section that we are going to look at is the differences between fact and opinion. So I want you to spend a minute just thinking to yourself, what is a fact and what is an opinion? How can we differentiate between the two? Okay, fantastic. So if you've had a little bit of thought about that, so a fact is something that is proven. It is based on evidence. For example, it is raining outside. Today is Monday. Things like that. It's something that we can prove, where an opinion is someone's point of view. Often, their thoughts and feelings. Fantastic. So, sometimes we can get confused between facts and opinions, but it's important to remember facts can be proven. For example, I am hungry. Although someone is saying this and it's coming from someone's point of view, it is actually fact. You could prove that they are hungry. So I want you to have a look at the sentences below and decide if they are fact or if they are opinionated. So we've got the new shopping centre will be amazing. The new shopping centre will be amazing is in fact an opinion. We then have the shopping centre. So about the shopping centre again, we'll be opening 40 new shops. So the shopping centre will be opening 40 new shops. Is a fact. 3, you will need to pay for parking at the shopping centre. So you will need to pay for parking at the shopping centre. Can that be proven? And yes, it can. So it is also a fact. And it will be a fantastic place for everyone. Is in fact an opinion. And just to help you out, if you're thinking, whoops, if these get a little bit tricky in your exam, I want you to focus on these words here: amazing and fantastic. Opinions will contain adjectives, will often contain adjectives. Show positivity or negativity. Okay. What we're now going to look at is what we call bias phrases. So bias phrase means a person has a specific feeling towards the subject they are talking about. They will be someone's point of view. This will often create a positive or negative point of view. Persuasive texts that are aiming to be encouraging often contain lots of biased phrases as the writer's aiming to convince us that their view is positive or negative is the actual right one. So, I want you to have a read of the paragraph below, and I want you to pick out 2 biased phrases that you may find in this text. So, research suggests that eating healthily benefits our bodies by up to 50%. I just love healthy eating. From cucumbers and lettuce to peppers and radishes, there are lots of options out there. Healthy eating is easier than you might think. Just popping ingredients in an air fryer and switching the button can help take time and stress out of dinner time. So I just want you to spend a minute or 2, have a read of that paragraph, and then I want you to identify 2 biased phrases in the text. 2 biased phrases. Okay, so our biased phrases, remember, opinions that can often emphasize how good or something bad something is. I just love healthy eating. I just love healthy eating. The writer's trying to persuade you, sounding a bit biased. There are lots of options out there. Healthy eating is easier than you might think. So you can have any 2 from these. Popping into it, switching it can help take the time and stress out of dinner time. So notice here the writer's trying to convey how easy this is. Fantastic. Okay, we are now on our last section, which is comparing texts. So in your exam, you will have to what we call compare and contrast. When we are comparing and contrasting text, we are saying what is similar and what is different. Often, to show this comparison, we need to change our vocabulary using some of the phrases on the left. So compare words like alike, both, the same, similar, in common, also, similarly, and contrasting words like different, differ, on the other hand, however. So what we want to try and aim to do is we want to try and include as many of these words within our paragraph of that last question in the exam, because this will be your last question, be around 3 marks, where you will have a look at the 2 texts that you've read and compare and contrast ideas. So how can we now use these words in our exam? So say we're writing a comparison about the 2 objects above. We're going to look now at what's similar. So the first thing that we're going to look at is what is similar. So comparing. I'm going to write a comparison based on these 2 objects using 1 word, and I'm going to use the word both. And we could say here, both objects are round. Perfect. Brilliant. What is the different about 2 objects above? Now we can say what is different, what is contrasting, and we're going to use on the other hand. So we're going to say 1 is red. On the other hand, the other is orange. Or however. And there we are using our words within our sentences. So how does that now apply to texts? So both texts that we have here are about the subject of dog walking. And our question is asking us to compare the views expressed by both writers about dog walking. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to demonstrate for you how you would then answer this question in relation to that comparing and contrasting using that vocabulary. So after reading the text, we're then going to look at what ideas are similar and what's different. So as you can see from text one, there is a lot of comments about the health benefits of walking your dog. Whereas in the second text, the writer comments that it can make her feel poorly and unwell. So that's one comment we can make. So we're going to say here, text A believes dog walking is beneficial for health. And what I'm then going to do, I'm then going to back up that phrase with evidence from the text. So, for example, benefit the health of our hearts. I'm going to pick that out. And then we're going to contrast it. So then we're going to say, however, text 2, or text B, believes dog walking can upset your health. As the writer says, or as the writer suggests. Then we're going to embed our quote into that phrase, makes me poorly or unwell. And we've done half the question. However, what you want to try and aim to do in your exam is repeat that structure again, giving the examiner no reason to doubt that you know exactly what you are doing with this. So we're then going to say text A, and I'm going to focus on this word here, simple, because it's mentioned more than once in the exam. So text A suggests dog walking. But I'm not going to use the word simple. I'm actually going to change it. I'm going to say the word easy. Suggest dog walking is an easy activity for benefiting your health. But notice here, I find it critical to find time to do it. Whereas text B emphasises the difficulty of finding time. So we've got 2 comments from each text are conjoining words like however, whereas, to then push those 2 texts together. And that is how we compare texts. So what you are going to go off and do is spend a little bit of time now reading this text, reading the 2 texts, and then we're going to have a look about how we can answer that question. So just spend some time reading the text, and then we're going to have a look at the example sentence we could write to then conclude these texts. Okay, so what we're going to do So just going to have a little bit of a look at text 1. So bumblebees are some of the most loved insects on the planet. They're a fantastic way of helping the environment by helping pollinate plants to help us grow vegetables. It's really important to help us save the bees, as even a teaspoon of sugary water can help a bee in need. Very positive point of view towards bees, text 2. Despite the push to save the popular insect, there are some still believe bees are the pests of the picnic. Quite a negative push. Research suggests 70% of people will attempt to swat a bee if they see them around barbecue, picnics, and outdoor eating areas. Even though we are encouraged to save the bees, it simply doesn't stop people being scared for them for life. So a rather bit of a negative point of view here. And the first thing I'm going to focus on is this muscle of insects. Now, as you can see in text 2, they actually describe them as popular, but then create a negative point of view that by describing them as pests of the picnic. So that's what we're going to emphasize on. So we're going to say both texts do mention these positively by emphasizing or suggesting their popularity. However, X2 then suggests that bees are seen negatively by describing them as pests of the picnic. Okay, so that's one sentence, right? If we were commenting on both texts, we can both mention that they emphasize about saving the bees. Both texts emphasize the importance of looking after the bee population, looking after bees. And then if we wanted to mention that text 1 is a little bit more positive, text 2 is a little bit more negative using facts and things like that, we can do. But ultimately, that is how we compare texts. So today, hopefully, you have improved your knowledge on organisational features, on fact and opinion, and of comparing texts.